And do you need me to hit continue on that? There.
We're ready to go.
Okay. Sorry, that's just not letting me hit that. There we go. Awesome. Okay. Okay, well, it's good morning from Mountain View, California. Hi, everybody. My name is Ann Stricherz. I'm going to be speaking about the mission of sports, vision of spirituality, and the role of this in Holy Cross education. So welcome to all Holy Cross educators. Just as a reminder, maybe for me, I really like this podcast, ESPN Daily. I don't know if anyone listens to it. Pablo Torre is the host. It was Mina Kimes before. Both are excellent. And I listen to it every morning on a walk. And I was listening to him and I thought, is he on speed 1.5? Like, you know how like your iPhone will take the speed up a little bit? And I realized, no, he's just talking really fast. And that's because he gets a lot of content in. And I feel that way about this topic. I get a lot of content in and I talk fast, but I really want to make an effort to just slow it down a little bit because of what we are trying to do and to see. Obviously, we're trying to talk about sight and vision. So again, maybe more a reminder for myself. I thought I would just take a moment to introduce myself and then we'll go into prayer. But I also was hoping maybe you could just offer, we could do introductions. Since it looks like there's 10 of us here, we can do that in the chat or whatnot. So as I mentioned, my name is Ann Stricherz. I'm at St. Francis High School in Mountain View, California. And I want to just briefly talk about my experience as a Holy Cross educator. And I chose this image of, I don't know if you want to call it a medallion or whatnot, but I taught for 2 years in the Alliance for Catholic Education, the ACE program, which a lot of people are now familiar with. ACE was, I'm in the 3rd class of ACE, so the kind of the pioneers. And I was an undergraduate at the University of Notre Dame, which is founded by Holy Cross. And I'm from the Bay Area. So people out here oftentimes would say things to me like, oh, are you going to Notre Dame Belmont? And no, I'm going to Notre Dame in South Bend. Or is that run by the Jesuits? No, it's run by Holy Cross. So, you're kind of hearing those questions out there, but internally, what was it like as a student, being at a Holy Cross school? I had 3 of my professors were Holy Cross priests, and I did learn something about Holy Cross through them, through their lived example, but it was really through the ACE program that I got to know Holy Cross, in particular because of the formation of ACE, the spiritual formation. It's in the summer. We went to Mass every night. We had it was a smaller community, and we befriended so many members of the community of Holy Cross. Now, those are Fathers of Holy Cross. I'm at a school run by the Brothers of Holy Cross. But that's kind of my background in terms of being a Holy Cross educator. I taught at Moreau Catholic for 2 years, and then I taught at St. Ignatius College Prep in San Francisco for 16. And this is my 2nd year at St. Francis. Now, I mentioned that because going outside of Holy Cross and learning about Ignatian spirituality has only personally, I think, sharpened my vision and understanding of Holy Cross education. So if you don't mind, I'd love for us just to take a minute. And if you want to offer in the chat your name, the school, maybe your role in the school, so we can just get a sense of who's with us today. So I can see your names, but I'd like to know a little bit of the story behind the individuals. And sometimes I can't get to my chat very well without. Okay, we have a principal, head AD, great. Everyone can see this. Football coach, wonderful. Oh, great, Ashley. Missed that. Holy Cross San Antonio. Wonderful. Middle school AD, right on. Jessica, welcome. Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Glad we're here. Okay. So let's begin with prayer. And I would like to dedicate today's prayer to Mark Halverson. And I'm going to share with you a little bit about his story in a minute. I'm going to just. So like I said, I'm from the Bay Area. I went to Carondelet High School. Carondelet is all-girls high school founded by the Sisters of St. Joseph of Carondelet. And it's very unique because your junior and senior year, every class that you have is at De La Salle or De La Salle, run by the Christian Brothers, which is across the street. So it's not like one class will be co-ed. Everything's integrated on the upper division, and lower division is, like I said, single sex. I mentioned that because my family, we get the De La Salle Alumni magazine. And a couple of years ago, I read about this coach, and I want to just share with you kind of his story. This was in the magazine, and I thought it was just super interesting. Sorry, I'm going to bear with me as He wrote the following. The early years at De La Salle were challenging as the program was still very young. We were just trying to teach the kids to like the sport of wrestling. That first year, there was no wrestling culture. My team goal was to finish third place in league, and the kids thought I was out of my mind, said Halverson. It was more about teaching than training, and we were constantly motivating the kids. So when I read that, I thought, this is really interesting to me, because this is a high school where, like, honestly, what they know is winning. And here's a coach that comes in and he recognizes there's not a culture around the sport. So he's very intentional about building a culture, and that by building that culture, that will lead to success. And so he sets this goal of third place. Like, what coach says that out loud, right? And sure enough, many years later, Coach Halverson became very successful. But I mentioned that because on February 15th of this year, he died of a heart attack at the age of 57. And I just want to remember him because coaches have such an impact. And I never even met him. I know some of his wrestlers, but I never even met him. But I was, his ideas and words resonated with me or had me think about coaching in a different way as I coach girls golf. So I would like to remember him in our prayers today. So this will be our prayer. It's a prayer that we use at our school here. We are named St. Francis. People don't associate St. Francis with Holy Cross because he wasn't a Holy Cross friar, right? He's the founder of the Franciscans. But the school was founded in the Diocese of San Francisco at the time, hence the prayer. So we'll just take a moment of silence. And let us pray. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. So today, let us remember those 8 people who have died in Indianapolis. Pray for anyone who's the victim of gun violence. I would like to pray for the repose of the soul of Coach Halverson and for all the young men who he influenced and helped to love their sport, their community. Does anyone else have any intentions? For the intentions we hold in our heart, for this we pray to the Lord. Lord, hear our prayer. And our prayer, St. Francis, you are the saint of joy because you found that true riches in God's field. You are the saint of peace because you found the true peace that comes from trusting in God. Help us, St. Francis, to find this same joy and experience this same peace in our hearts and in our lives. Amen. St. Francis, pray for us. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. I love that image. This is a statue of St. Francis that is in our main building. Sorry, I keep pulling it on. Okay, so in this presentation today, a couple things that I'd like to talk about. We'll start with mission, okay? And team, why is that? Sorry, this is team culture, charism, sight and vision, service and prayer, sports and spirituality, okay? So please know these are kind of the concepts that we're going to unpack in our time together. I'd like to begin with just a brief clip from the movie Jerry Maguire from 1996. And don't know if you've seen the movie or not, but Jerry Maguire, played by Tom Cruise, is the sports agent. And this is the very beginning of the movie, right? And it's about the mission statement that prompted the story that is the rest of the movie. So I'm going to share this. We'll take it from there.
Out of mellow, a mission statement, a suggestion for the future of our company. A night like this doesn't come along very often. I seized it. What started out as one page became 25. Suddenly, I was my father's son again. I was remembering the simple pleasures of this job, how I ended up here out of law school, the way a stadium sounds when one of my players performs well on the field, the way we are meant to protect them in health and in injury. With so many clients, we had forgotten the books. Wrote and wrote and wrote and wrote. And I'm not even a writer. I was remembering even the words of the original sports agent, my mentor, the late great Dickie Fox, who said, "The key to this business is personal relationships." Suddenly it was all pretty clear. The answer was fewer clients, less money, more attention, caring for ourselves and games, to just starting our lives, really. And I'll be the first to admit, what I was writing was somewhat touchy-feely. I didn't care. I had lost the ability to push it. It was the me I always wanted to be. I took it back to a copy mat in the middle of the night and printed up 110 copies, even the cover like The Catcher in the Rye. I entitled it "The Things We Think and Do Not Say, the Future of Our Business." I'm 34. I started my life.
All right. Okay. So I wanted to begin with that because I often find
I began writing what they call a mission statement.
a couple of things to be actually pretty true about this vignette. So, the rest of the story for Jerry Maguire is that he writes this mission statement, and allegedly the corporate culture supports him, but what do we find out? He gets fired, right? That they clap him up front, but then internally nobody really believes it. And there's certain things that I think those of us involved in schools and who have had to work on mission statements know. No mission statement worth its salt would probably be 25 pages, right? In fact, I was on the committee at St. Ignatius to rewrite our mission statement, and it's very tight, it's very compact, and we spent a lot of time making sure that every single word mattered, right? And so with his mission statement, he comes back to it later and he says, it was just a mission statement. And so I like to play with this idea because it's just a mission statement. And part of me is but the mission statement is why we do what we do. It is the why. And in athletics, we love to talk about the why. Also, I wonder how many of us kind of are the people applauding and saying, yeah, I'm behind it. But then internally, we're not really buying into it. I think these are questions for ourselves. I think when we are leaning into the mission, we do feel energized. I'm not about to do a handstand like against the wall, like Jerry Maguire does, and pop out of it. But there's something to be said for like feeling good about really believing in the mission. And, he says, I'm my father's son again, all these, ways that speak to the meaning behind the mission for him. So with that in mind, I would like to offer this question, and I'm just curious from those people in the audience. Does your athletic department have a mission statement? So I'm going to just stop sharing for a minute so I can see folks wondering if people do have a mission statement. Can anyone comment on that? Does anybody know if they have one at their school for athletics in particular?
At Cathedral, and we don't necessarily have an athletic department mission statement, but all of our head coaches, we worked with them to create their mission statements for their programs.
Oh, great. Wonderful. Okay. Thank you. Anyone else?
At Holy Cross of San Antonio, we generally don't have an athletic mission statement.
Mm-hmm.
But what we do have is we try to tie into the purpose of the school and the mission of the school.
Yep. Great. Mm-hmm. Anyone else?
Hi, this is, let me go here. This is Ann at Notre Dame High School down in Southern California.
I looked at your website. Yes.
I'm looking at it now too.
Yeah.
I was excited to see that you're the fellow golf coach, so I'll email you later.
Oh, wonderful.
We have a paragraph that's on our athletic page, and it basically has our philosophy.
Yes.
It doesn't say the word mission, but it has similar concepts of what you would have in a mission statement.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah, I enjoyed looking at your website, Ann. It's pretty cool. Great. Well, a number of you kind of touched on some of my beliefs about that. Let me pull up what I think ultimately the mission of athletics is really no different than the mission of your school. So whether or not you have one, is another question. But I pulled up the mission of St. Francis. I looked at Moreau Catholic, where I taught before. And then, as I mentioned, I looked at Notre Dame, Sherman Oaks. And then I looked at, I think, St. Edward's High School. And I really didn't find one, but I don't necessarily know that, we need to do that, because what we're trying to achieve is essentially what our school is trying to achieve. And so, I thought about some of the signs or information that our coaches get or their athletes get that kind of bring that mission to life. And this is one of our posters, like kind of our core values: effort, teamwork, and sportsmanship. Is that in the mission of the school? That would be worth aligning or looking at. We do have for in the handbook, the following for coaches and their responsibilities. And I put in the highlighted box. I don't know if you find that helpful, but coaches should adhere to and support the philosophy and mission of St. Francis. So part of their job is really to, support the mission. And they should be loyal to it and to each other, other faculty, administrators, etc. So I see a symbiosis here. But I thought I'd pull up, again, just as a way of compare and contrast. This is the mission statement at St. Ignatius. This is what I worked on probably 12 years ago when it was rewritten just for, there was a program like the graduate at graduation, Profile 2020. So in preparation for that, it was rewritten and tightened and just evaluated. And I highlighted here a couple of words that I found as a coach, I think really spoke to the program that I was a part of. So I coached rowing, I coached cross country, and I coached golf. So if you were part of my program, these are a couple of things that you would have known if you were one of my athletes. The first thing is, since 1855, I found in so many of our athletic programs, we did like to speak to the fact that we were part of something so much larger than ourselves. Like the history of athletics at St. Ignatius was really celebrated. 1855 in the Bay Area is meaningful. Second, integrated program of academic, spiritual, and co-curricular activities. So as a coach, that means allowing students to be on retreats, on Kairos retreats, appropriately working on their academics in light of the demands of our sport. And whether it be, like I said, co-curricular activities, that is what we are doing. So we did pray as a team. We did do, learning about your sport, which is the next thing I highlighted, lifelong learner. That was part of my personal coaching philosophy, is that you wouldn't just be a runner for high school, you'd be a runner for life. As a golfer, that's definitely, you can have the long view. But I wanted my athletes to know that it doesn't just stop right after high school. I think every athlete should develop their individual talents. And then the two things that you see in yellow are kind of buzzwords in Jesuit education. Greater glory of God is AMDG, men and women for and with others. Again, these would be terms that students can latch onto, whether or not they're at Bellarmine, whether they're not at St. Ignatius or Loyola. Now, I say that because I think our own schools, Holy Cross, provides that as well. So this quote by Nelson Mandela I thought was pretty powerful. And he said the following: sport has the power to change the world. It has the power to inspire. It has the power to unite people in a way that little else does. It speaks to youth in a language they can understand. So sport is definitely its own language. And I think it's the place by which we can really carry the language of our community. So I thought about some of the words that we use at St. Francis, and Holy Cross is something that our students hear quite a bit. Brick values. So these are, for our school, building respect. Each one stands for a certain value. Hearts and minds, that's from Basil Moreau. Lancers is our mascot. Family. Family is going to be a key word that we often reference. And the bay tree. The bay tree is a very powerful symbol on our school. It's used consistently because it's again, it's not just a place, but it's a symbolic place on our campus. Now, I thought about the language we speak in Holy Cross and in our schools, whether or not a student goes to Notre Dame Sherman Oaks or Moreau or St. Francis, they would hear these words. Again, family, humility, hospitality, zeal, hope, gratitude. So I attended a session yesterday on the spirituality of Holy Cross, and it was affirming to hear, both of the presenters speak to each of these kind of virtues of Holy Cross schools. So my question then is, would our student athletes understand this? That these are virtues, because they can know it, but would they understand it? So I thought, well, one of the ways of knowing is that it's part of the program. So I'm always curious to know, which of these words do you associate with your athletic team or program? Like, if this was a hallmark, would you say, yes, we do compete with zeal, or I really make sure that there is humility among my athletes. We have hope to bring. So I think this is knowing these words, and again, these words are extracted from the mission. They're part of the mission. I think it's basically a case for the evaluation of team culture. And I'm going to say something about team culture in a minute, but I think these are questions that we could ask our coaches, and I think we could ask for the athlete. Right? So I'm curious from the group, of these words, which one would you associate with your athletic program? Would anyone like to offer a thought on that? Is there one word that kind of stands out for you where you're like, yeah, I think we do that. I think that's part of our culture. I think that we are carrying the mission out.
I think at Holy Cross of San Antonio, we push the concepts of family pretty hard.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing I would say about us is zeal. Just the way our kids compete, the expectations of how they compete and how they represent the school.
That's great. I love that word too, zeal. It's just, there's some verve to it, Mm-hmm. Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Ann at in Sherman Oaks. I would say family for sure. I think that's
Mhm.
a hallmark of Holy Cross. I've been here 35 plus years, and it's family all the way through. But
Mhm.
gratitude would be my second one.
Mhm. How
For what they have, for what we have, for having each other, you know, all of that.
so important. Yeah, thank you. Good. Yeah, so I think, in our formation of coaches, this is something that we could give to our coaches and say, okay, here's our virtues, and these are the characteristics of Holy Cross education. And, choose one. Like, if your program really does value, has zeal, or you want zeal to be part of the program, like, what does that look like? Or, my question here, if I want to put some meat behind family, like everybody has an understanding of family because we're part of them. What are characteristics of a family that you want your team to model? And so for me, when I was thinking about this, like, okay, I do agree, and I chose this image. This is the blessing of fall athletes, and it's by the statue of the Holy Family on our campus. I think one of the most important characteristics of a family is the notion of respect. And that was really valued in my home growing up. My mom was always like, never say anything negative about your family. It's, family is really important, and really, it wasn't just talked about, but it was modeled by things that we would do for each other. But I'd like to talk about institutionally how we then maybe put this, how I see this carried out in the school. So it's really small, but there is a strong emphasis. Kids call their coaches coach. They don't call us by their first name. They don't call us like just last name only. It is consistent. You are Coach Stricherz. Now, I'm a teacher. I'm Miss Stricherz in the classroom, but I am coach. And I think that's actually a sign of respect. I think it's important. So that has been passed on by our athletic director. And I think that that is a great sign of respect. And then personally, how do we show respect? I'd like to offer an example of something that has happened for me and my team this past golf season. So at the conclusion of a match, golfers are supposed to take off their hat, thank their opponent for the match, acknowledge the game. And I noticed this year, because we're playing right now, girls just would walk off. And it bothered me because I think part of respect for your opponent in the game is acknowledging what had just happened. And I kind of asked about it, a little bit kind of what's up? And one of the girls was like, well, with COVID, I don't really know. And I realized maybe they don't. And so at the conclusion of all groups that came through, and they all did the same thing where they didn't acknowledge their opponent and walked away, I made an announcement. And I just said, hey, girls, I know that this year's a little bit different. We're so glad we're able to compete. You might not know how to interact with your opponent, but I think it's really important that you, at the conclusion, again, say thank you, acknowledge one another, figure out a way to kind of, I kind of want to say touch one another, but I said you can tap your putter, you can, fist bump, whatever it may be. But I think it's important to do that. Again, I think that's a sign of respect. And then, for example, say I want humility for the virtue of humility as a Holy Cross value. I would like to know, from my student athletes, what does it look like in your sport? And this is something that is given prescriptively. What I mean by that is, our baseball coach says that his motto is hard work, hustle, and humility. So it's found right there. It's in their kind of statement: hard work, hustle, and humility. It's what they're called to do, and it's passed on every year. He knows, his players know that's expected of them. And then again, personally. And so, for example, I had to talk to my golfers a little bit about this. I have some very talented golfers, and one girl in particular, she beat this girl by 6 strokes, and both parties both knew it. And she was saying out loud, I played so terrible today. I didn't play well. Meanwhile, again, she's beaten her opponent definitively. And I think part of humility is just awareness, like awareness that, okay, maybe it wasn't your worst match, but you won, so to speak. So again, inviting them to kind of think about, right, how we are and what we're interacting with, and taking it from there. Or if another virtue is gratitude, how do you show gratitude, and asking them. Our girls volleyball program, I thought this was awesome. They wrote the athletic director thank you notes. They thanked him for all the hard work he's been doing this season. And I really appreciated that, or it wasn't to me, but it was to my boss. I just thought, wow, what enabled them to like think of that? And I thought that's the work of St. Joseph, who is kind of not seen all the time. There's so many people that make athletics happen that we maybe never see or notice. And so, there's something there, like an opportunity to extend gratitude to those, showing that we are seeing them. And I'll talk about sight and vision in a moment. Okay, I'm just trying to see if I have a couple questions in the chat here. All right. So, okay, great. We're just welcoming more people. Awesome. So I don't know if anyone has any thoughts on any of, kind of these ideas here. But I would like to link it to a case for positive team culture. Okay, so I think the words that we're asking about there are kind of the bricks for team culture. And I feel pretty fortunate because we have a group, the SJEI kind of division in our school, the Social Justice, Equity, and Inclusion Board gave a presentation at our coaches retreat on restorative justice, social justice, and our role in athletics. And this was great. It was really helpful to partner with this group. They have so much knowledge and information, and athletics is such a place where we can go deeper with this. So I appreciated that they were talking about positive team culture and then its connection to, right, restorative practices. And this was their essential question. How can coaches incorporate restorative practices to build a positive team culture? What a great question for our coaches to consider. In order to do that, you have to know what restorative practice is, which they did. And then we had to consider positive team culture, which they also did. So I'd like to just share with you this quote that they included by John Gordon. And I'm going to just share with you a brief clip of their presentation that we offered to our coach, that our coaches saw, to help us think a little bit more about team culture. Okay, so let me pull that up. And it is right here.
Hello, the school's commitment, witnessed, grounded in an identity. So team culture is a positive team culture, which is our goal. And what are restorative practices, which is what we're using, one of the tools we're using to achieve that goal. So team culture is really, to put it in very simple words, how we behave on this team. If we think about behavior, the reflection being the reflection of our values. If we elaborate a little bit more, team culture is expression of team values, attitudes, and beliefs about sports and competition, grounded in an identified sense of mission and shared goals. And positive culture is that one that builds trust and a strong sense of community and belonging. And it's also cooperative effort between coaches, players, and parents. So the team culture may not look the same for every team, right? It determines whether, for example, the team's focus is on fun, on mastery, on winning, or whether it promotes individual accomplishment or team success, like, running for a state. For us, because our teams are all part of the same high school program, we do share a mission and common values that we teach in our programs. So we're bringing this quote from John Gordon's book, The Power of a Positive Team, Proven Principles and Practices That Make Great Team Great, because we like the aspect that culture is not static, it's dynamic. So whether you might be very, very happy with your team culture, but if you see room for improvement, there is improvement that you can start implementing tomorrow morning by, changing maybe how you say things, or how you share things, or what you do, how you model what you want to see. And what are results?
Awesome. Thank you, Maria. Okay. So again, just some, I think it's helpful to just know what she's offering in terms of, team culture. And I think it's worth considering, because when I look at these two ideas, one, the presentation, and then the essential questions that they are offering, I totally see that that's the mission of our school. So building a team culture, if culture is a place that reflects your values, right? It's where the mission is lived and understood, so to speak, and that it's a process. So a restorative practice means that maybe something has been compromised or broken along the way. It's not something that's static. It's something we're always working towards. And hopefully it's just, it's inclusive, right? It's equitable. Noble goals, right? Noble goals, but worthy goals by all means. And so our team culture and the mission ought to go hand in hand. So my question then becomes for our presentation is this: how do we bridge the mission and then our team culture? Because Maria acknowledged that every team's culture is going to be different. Yes. So based on personality types, even just numbers of kids that are involved in your program, the team culture of track and field is going to be very different than my 8 girls on varsity golf, so to speak. There's going to be hopefully some similarities because of the mission, right? But how we do that, how it's expressed might be different. I chose this picture of Pope Francis because his Twitter handle is Pontifex, which means bridge builder. And I just love that image that he has been called as the Holy Father to build a bridge. A bridge connects 2 different places. It goes 2 directions. So it's not just him reaching out to us, but vice versa. And he's certainly done this, the Harlem Globetrotters here. And I think they're cool because they also have a couple of women on the team too, who I wish had been in the picture, but their spirit is just so great. So I think the way that we can create this bridge is my topic and kind of area of expertise, which is sports and spirituality. So in 2009, I started a blog and I created a class. It's a senior selective called Sports and Spirituality. And I really think it's predicated on the 2 concepts that I want to use to help us bridge mission and culture, which are sight and vision. And one of the prompts at the beginning of my class is this. I just put the statement, I believe in things visible and invisible. And then I give the trailer for Field of Dreams. And I have kids respond. Because really that's the story of Field of Dreams, right? Is that Kevin Costner is seeing something. He's hearing voices, right? He's seeing things that other people don't see. And it prompts him to take action. And I think he has both sight and vision. And I think that's what speaks to me most about sports and spirituality. So I thought it'd be kind of cool if we could have a little fun with this as it relates to our topic. We have a quarterback controversy here in the Bay Area. We have Jimmy Garoppolo is our quarterback, but as anyone who maybe is interested in the NFL and professional football, the big question, because the Niners now have the 3rd pick in the draft, is who are they going to pick? And why would they even do that? Well, part of the frustration with the Niners isn't just that, he's vulnerable with his injuries. They have a lot of things on tape where Jimmy just doesn't see the open guys. He's just not seeing the open players. And it's frustrating to find out, like, what is he not seeing? And so when I heard that, I hear that question and I think about it beyond sports. I think about it within sports. I think it's certainly true. But what are we supposed to see and we don't see? right? So he's supposed to be seeing the open players, but he's not. And I think that's a really interesting question. The second is this. I live in San Francisco, and I live on a busy street, Fillmore Street, and it was Sunday morning. I walk out my front door and I see Joe Montana, and I was like, wow, he's wearing a mask, and he went to have, I live above a restaurant, so he was eating, and his wife, Jennifer, was right there, and that's cool. I mean, I'm a huge Niner fan, and went to Notre Dame. And then 4 days later, I'm walking out of the PGA Superstore, and I see Steve Young. And I thought, this is wild. Like, I'm seeing two of the greater, 49ers within, 4-day window. And I had to ask myself, like, first of all, are these people always around us and we're not seeing them? Like, what enabled me to see both people? Because again, we're always on the go, we're moving, but there are times where we do notice things, right? And it's like, well, what enables us to see? Paying attention or focus, and any athlete has to ask him or herself these questions, right? What are we supposed to see and we don't see? And then what enables us to see? But as a golfer, I want to just kind of acknowledge too, like, there are things that we can see and have to see as an athlete. You have to keep your eye on the ball. There are things that you have to follow. But then what enables a person to see beyond the ordinary, to recognize an event, right? And I caught this in the moment, and I thought it was really cool. And obviously a number of other people did. This is the caddy for Hideki Matsuyama. And at the end of the Masters, he returns and puts the pin in the hole, and he took off his hat and he bowed. And he's not even bowing at the winner. He's not bowing to the crowd. He's bowing to the game of golf, just as a total sign of respect. It was a really small gesture, but I think those small gestures are just very important. And again, what we see and what we don't see, but then what enables us to see beyond, right? To see something more. Is a question I like to play with. And then lastly, okay, what even sharpens our vision from there? And this is another analogy that I had a lot of fun playing with and thinking more about. So golfers have to, read their putts, and you try to find this line. So you're looking for this line that will take your ball from where it is on the green into the hole. And there are times where you can really see the line, and other times where it's more of a struggle. One of the golfers I'm a fan of is Dustin Johnson, and he became, the #1 golfer in the world. I don't know right now if it's always up and down, but it's close. But one of the reasons he improved so much is because he lowered his average putts per round. And one of the reasons he attributes his improved putting is because his brother Austin, who's on the left there, is his caddy. And again, there's different ways to read the green, but the way that Austin reads the green is by aim point. And aim point means that you have to read the green with your feet, so to speak. So you try to get an angle. So you're reading the green by feeling where is like the upper or lower ground. And there's a calculation that goes with it. So Austin reads the green, Dustin reads the green, and together, right? Ultimately, Dustin has to make the putt. He has to do the deed. But I think it's really interesting to think about, okay, what are ways that maybe we see differently? So maybe what sharpens our vision, not necessarily our sight, but our vision. So are we reading the greens with our feet, and then in life, like, are we feeling things out and using other information? And how do we implement all that? So I liked this analogy because I think it invites us to consider how we do our work. Mission to me can be pretty boring, but if we think of it in terms of sight and vision, suddenly it's animated. There's more to it, I think. It's like we need to look for the evidence that what we're talking about out here is actually grounded. So I don't know if anyone wants to offer a thought or a response to anything that I just offered there, but I'd love to just invite some voices or some input and then give you some examples of sight and vision as it relates to our mission. Anybody want to offer a thought? Too much Niners. Sorry. They didn't have a good year, so I shouldn't have to apologize.
I think my assistant coaches help me stay focused. Whenever a season ends, whenever even in the middle of the season, they do a great job of coming up and saying, "Hey, coach, you know, did you lose sight of this, or did you not, you know, not thinking about this?" And because sometimes when you serve multiple roles within a school, teacher, administrator, coach, you tend to lose sight of those things, and you tend to focus on too many big pictures and not enough of the little things. And I think my assistant coaches do an incredible job of keeping me focused. Last week we had a staff meeting preparing for spring football, and I encouraged them to be open. And they were, I mean, they truly were open. Sometimes they said things I didn't really want to hear. Because they were telling me, you know, they were, you know, it was critical or it was criticism. But unfortunately, you know, when they're right, it's still their right. And you have to learn to take the good and the bad and try to, like you said, sharpen your focus and sharpen your vision on what you're doing. But I would say assistant coaches for me, and for us, team leadership councils, kids who we trust, as far as getting the pulse of the team, help us have a pretty good idea of what's going on in that locker room. But
Awesome.
just my take.
Yeah. I love it. Well, I think you mentioned something where that might require humility, because you said I might not want to hear it. So I appreciate, you know, that as a Holy Cross value. But I heard Paul Westhead speak, and he gave a really great talk to a bunch of coaches. And he said, an assistant coach should be good at one thing. I don't need the assistant coach to be good at, they should really be specifically good at one thing. But I would add one thing to what he said. I would say what you just pointed out. They should be good at one thing, whatever, you know, that is in their role in the team, but also to help the coach to see or to keep that focus. That's a great role for an assistant coach, right? Because that requires collaboration and vision as well. Thank you. Anyone else want to offer a thought?
I'd second the second part of what Coach just said on the Student Leadership Council. For those of us that work with bigger programs and bigger teams, having a group of students, our leadership council is diverse for us. As on my swim coaching side of my life, we have everything from kids that have never swum to kids that like trials. And so for our leadership council, we try to put kids from each of those areas, older kids, trusted kids, in order to allow their voices to be heard, and helping them develop that lens as well.
Right. And I think that speaks to, like you've talked about, the culture of a swim team right there. I mean, the characteristics, I should say. It's bigger. There's a variety of, you know, experience and talent. So that need for student leadership might be even that much more pressing. That's good. Thank you. Okay. So, you know, if you get a chance, watch Dustin Johnson. I think he's playing they're in Hilton Head this weekend. I don't know if he'll play, but probably so. It's close to his home. So a question I think we have to ask is, what do others see in us? And I would like to share kind of a story of an encounter I had at Ace Hardware, of all places. I was wearing the shirt, and the young woman checking me out, like at the register, she said, "What is your mascot?" And she looked at the shirt, and she knew that we had some sort of mascot, but is reading this and can't figure out what our mascot is. And I said, well, we're the Lancers. And I know like that didn't answer I knew there was still some confusion, because as you can see here, we put, you know, the cross and anchors on a lot of our athletic wear. And I do wonder, when people see that, do they understand what that means? So she was confused. She's like, is that part of a Lancer, or like, how does that work? So fortunately, she asked the right person, because I wonder, you know, when a young person is asked, why is there a cross and anchors on the shirt? How would they answer that? Or I have this image on the right. This is a keychain that we gave to our coaches. So if somebody picked up a keychain and they said to coach, hey, what is that about? How would they answer? I think that's a really important question. I think we should equip our coaches and one another to be able to answer that question. Now, I looked at her and I said, do you go to Crondelet? And again, that's where I went. So I was able to kind of speak her language. And I said, well, a couple of things. Crondelet was founded by Sister St. Joseph of Crondelet. I said, St. Francis is founded by Holy Cross. And what you're seeing here, the cross and anchors, is the symbol for the community of Holy Cross. I said, however, our mascot is a lancer. And I kind of just explained, and she's like, oh, okay, you know, like she was curious. And I think that's great. She wanted to know. This was no different than when I was working at St. Ignatius. AMDG was all over a lot of athletic uniforms. The AD there said his worst nightmare is if somebody said, what is AMDG? And a kid was like, I don't know. And it's almost like used as an insider's guide. It shouldn't be an insider's guide. Like, oh, I'm AMDG and you're not, or, you know, there's a mutual understanding. Like it requires like some actual reflection. Like, what does that mean? And I think we can help people to know what it means. Second point I want to kind of offer here is like others. So that point was, you know, what do others see in us? This is something I do think others see in us. So this is our girls cross country team. And I've noticed every time that they pray, they really pray. Like it's beautiful. And I don't know that people would say that about my golf team. I'm serious, but I see that in this team. There are a number of teams that I'm like, it's real. It's really part of who you are and what you do. And that's a beautiful thing. So, you know, shout out to Coach Pompey for creating a program where people really see something in this group that is, you know, legitimate and meaningful. I think one question we should also ask is, what do our students see? You know, what are they looking at? And I was reminded of what they see because I get asked about it all the time. If you look at this table, it's filled with the coveted varsity jackets. So students are always aware of who has a varsity jacket. And I took this picture because I thought, that's a big deal. Like I remember in high school wanting that varsity jacket myself. And I wanted to acknowledge this isn't just a regular day. This is a moment. This is something that you've earned. And, you know, not that I need to ritualize it or make it anything more than it is, but I do know that those are some things that kids are paying attention to. And so I think as a coach, it's important to have in our pocket things that we can name and see. So, you know, whether or not it's the cross and anchors on our uniform and the ability to teach about it, but also some like everyday go-to things. For example, at Notre Dame, they don't put their names on the back of the jerseys. So this is Chase Claypool. I personally, like in recent years, I'm like, I'm over it. I'm fine. I'm fine with having names on the back of the jersey. And they do that for bowl games. But, you know, the purpose of that is for the athlete to know it's about the school and not the individual. And whether or not the team lives that way is another thing. But I think as a coach, it's important to have things that you can latch onto, that you can say, no, this is who we are and what we do. And again, the challenge is to actually do it. But I do appreciate that the football team has lived by this. And then at a certain point, they say, you know, we'll honor the individual. It's the postseason. So that's what we're going to do. So just means I have to look at the roster a little bit more, but I think that's okay. Okay. And I think the purpose of formation for our coaches is to develop their sight and their vision. So here's just 3 images you can see. I talked about that bay tree at the beginning. The bay tree is, it's like on the end zone of our field, and it's a beautiful tree, as you can see, and they intentionally kept it there. And when we had our coaches retreat in February, and we gathered at the foot of the bay tree. Now, I talked about sight and vision. I had to read the green for a long time. We were not sure when to have this retreat because for us in the Bay Area, we'd been, closed down for so long. To have had the retreat in October, it would have felt hollow, if you will. So we did this in February. As we got more open and we progressed towards, our hybrid model. But again, I had to read the green, like, do we need to acknowledge what we've lost, and then look ahead? Do we even need to name that, there's been a whole season of sports, almost a year that's gone, and then move on? So again, it required some thoughtful reading of the green. But in this time, we had a prayer service. So you see that in the middle, led by a Holy Cross priest, who gave a brief homily, and it was just a liturgy of the word, just in the spirit of time. And then we had some coaches give some testimonials about what this time, this liminal space had kind of meant for them. And I think it was important to have the coaches articulate that. And at this event, we gave out that keychain, and Father Tom blessed it and talked about the cross and anchors. It was interesting because there were a couple of students there. We asked a couple of students to speak, and they asked for one of the keychains too, which meant a lot to me that they wanted to be part of that. At the same gathering, we did this kind of sharing from the student athletes. This is what I had the students share. So ahead of time, I asked our athletic directors council. So if you have a group of captains or different athletes, this is something you could ask them to do. And we had the students read it out loud. So it's the questions. It's important to me that I wish my coach knew that. I like it when my coach is fun when someone in sports I would like to pray for. So we asked these same prompts then they said, it's important to me that my teammate, I wish my teammate knew that. I like it when my teammate, etc. A teammate I'd like to pray for is this. So this is a great idea. You can steal it. You might want to offer it for your coaches. If you gather again, ask some students to respond to this, but I'll give you just a couple of examples. So for the first question, it's important to me that my coach knows that we're dedicated to this team, tells me what I need to work on so I can tell my teammates what we need to work on. I wish my coach knew that academic stress on top of my teammates and coaches' pressure can be overwhelming. I always put in my maximum effort, even if I don't end up doing well. I like it when my coach lets me be the leader for my teammates. Runs in conditioning with us, even though she smokes us every time. So they'll always give their own voice. It is fun. My coach is fun when they get into scrimmages and encourage us to get competitive. So you get the idea. It's great to hear the student voice in terms of who we are and what we do. So not only did we have the coaches retreat in February, but prior to that, we had an onboarding kind of retreat for our new coaches. So these are men or women who may or may not have experience with St. Francis. They may or may not have gone to the school or be a parent. So, they're entering into this place. And again, it's prompted by that question, like they're going to be wearing our gear at Ace Hardware. What is somebody going to ask them? So one of the things that we did in terms of the mission in Sight and Vision is we took them kind of on a walking pilgrimage. We took them to 6 different spaces on campus where we think the mission is told through the artwork, through the sacred space. So again, you have up here, St. Joseph in the prayer garden. You have the Holy Family. So St. Joseph is, humility. Holy Family is family. The Bay Tree, why that's an important place for us. Francis at the foot of the cross, the Hall of Fame, and our chapel. We deemed these as sacred spaces, but places that could also kind of share the mission of our school. So those are just but a few of the things that I think we've offered. And, we haven't figured it all out. There's things that we haven't been able to do, by which I think we offer, the ability for people to see beyond, but also to understand what they can see and then see beyond what they're expected to see. So would love to get comments, questions, ideas from folks, if you have them from here. So here's a question. Does anyone use surveys of players and parents post-season to gather feedback around how well the team maintains the Holy Cross values or school culture? Other feedback mechanisms? What a great question. The ongoing question of evaluation. I think that is essential to our success. If we are going to succeed in bridging the culture and the mission, I think we should be evaluating it. I don't know if anyone does that, but would love to hear. Other things I considered for just touch points. At the beginning of the season, we give our student athletes prayer cards. It's not a lot of work, but it's something that just requires some thought. On the prayer card is laminated, and it's given every year to my I did it every year when I was a cross country coach. There's a prayer, and on the back it just says, St. Francis Cross Country 2008. And I find out years later, kids are like, I still have that prayer card. Again, it's just a tangible reminder, things that we can point to. Again, we need to use the prayer card. We should be praying the prayer card, but it's something by which we can bridge that gap.
And I have a question about who coordinates all of the activities you have for the coaches retreat, the onboarding, getting the prayer cards. Is that your athletic director, or is there a kind of a staff behind him that does that? Because I'm picturing how busy our athletic directors are right now, and I would love to go suggest all this, and they'd probably kill me.
No. Yes, they would. And so, yeah, a couple things. That would be my role in the school, but it's not without the total partnership of the athletic director. So he's really behind this, someone who really lives the mission. And I think that's why people know. Oh, I meant to say this. When coaches were sitting at the retreat, one of the coaches said, I'm sitting under the bay tree and I realized, wow, this is like the school really values this. They realized it, in that moment. So I am happy to share. I have tons of ideas in terms of a script for a retreat. I think that would be a helpful resource by which, you should make it your own, obviously, but I'm happy to share. This is what we did. And these are things I wish we had done. One of our tensions was I really wanted a mass, even though it's quick, and we just didn't have the time for it. And, he's like, not all of our coaches go to mass. And I said, but we asked our students to do that. So it was a good conversation. You know what I mean? And it worked out great. Liturgy of the word is fine. But then I was like, do we even need a priest? I don't need a priest to do that. It could be a lay person who's doing the liturgy of the word. So it became a priest. No, he's off campus. He's at Holy Cross Center in Berkeley, but he was willing to do that. We do have 2 priests on campus, but this particular priest is a friend of mine. I think it was just a better fit for our group. But I guess I say that because I want people to know it should involve a lay person, or it could. It's not should, it could. Anything that we do.
Is your campus ministry involved with some of that? Campus ministry people?
So I think, Ann, you've named another group that, at St. Ignatius, when I was working with athletics, we leaned more into campus ministry for help with this. Based on my role, I had the freedom to do it, but I think you could do that. There was a mass that we had for our athletic directors council. Campus ministry did all the heavy lifting for that, and they were really happy to do that.
So do you have an official title for running that part of things?
Yeah, so I'm assistant athletic director for mission and engagement. Yeah, so that's, I think why I was asked to give the talk too, that
it's very inspiring.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, and it's also times where I want to speak to the, I'm a coach too. I'm a teacher too. A friend of mine is a caddy on the PGA, and he's like, and I have one job, it's to carry a bag. Like, in our schools, we do so many different things.
Yeah.
And, it's true. Like, when the rubber meets the road, these are the things that go to the side that can, but if you can at best get the retreat, it's like set that up, the new, like the onboarding and the retreat, it gives some momentum, and it's a great way to just get things started.
Well,
The book club,
like an example of you having a zeal for something. And so you're willing to go over and above and beyond whatever you have to do. And that's what Holy Cross is about. We're all doing multiple things. It's just what you have real extra passion for. Yeah.
Thank you. That's a great way of putting it. Because I believe in it. I think it's, I had great example. I was given great examples, and I think, it's the Holy Spirit. So there's joy for me. There's joy in it too. Now, some things we've done have failed. For example, we not failed, but just not succeeded. We tried to do a book club just recently. We did a book club at the beginning of the year on things that make white people uncomfortable. It's written by an NFL player. It was a good discussion. And then we did Abby Wambach. She has a new book about like the wolf pack, and 2 people came. It was the easiest book in the world to read, and it's just not where people are at right now. So we keep saying planting seeds and hoping, for the best, but it was discouraging. I don't try to say all the stuff is working, but cool. Thank you for your question. Anyone else?
Hi.
Yeah.
Sorry, it's kind of dark here. I don't know. I don't have good background light. I got in late to the session. I'm the one that sent the question about the surveys. I'm with Gilmore Academy and their board of trustees, and I just a business guy by nature, and grateful for you looking for ways in this integration of the Holy Cross charisms into sports. But I try to think, there's a lot of coaching styles in the world, and it seems as if there needs to be a feedback mechanism where you can get a sense that the kids are feeling the values are being displayed, and that the parents are feeling it, and probably not just at the end of the season, probably, at various points, even, it could be those points you made. The coach, I like it when the coach says this or does this, kind of covering the various values. And I wonder if anybody set something like that up, like a Survey Monkey that goes out once every few weeks, or do you typically get, again, I'm not the coach, I'm just a trustee here. Do you typically get so much negative energy coming through those things because of, oh, my son's or daughter's not playing, or they're not being treated properly, or do you get good enough feedback? And has anybody done that in a way where it's been productive and effective in really holding coaches accountable and to thinking about these things?
No, I appreciate your question. I'd love to hear from somebody. I will speak to again, with 16 years at St. Ignatius, I can just speak to that a little bit more authentically. A graduation has there's 6 charisms within a Jesuit school by which, a graduate should embody these 6 qualities, and leaders in collaboration would be one. Committed to justice. At the end of the sophomore year in religious studies, students spoke to that, where are you? Senior year, they had to do it with a religious studies assignment, and then there was exit interviews by Kairos group, so by different faculty, and it was a conversation. So 2 written pieces, one like any exit interview. So I thought that was one way of tracking. Every time leaders and leadership was always a limit. How do kids see leadership? They see it as the captain, but where else are people leading? What other opportunities do kids have for leadership? Where might we be limited in our leadership? And if that's one of the schools, mechanisms for the one of the, delineators for a graduate, then we need to be responsible for that. So I can speak to that. I don't know if anyone else has other thoughts on Michael's question.
I know in a lot of our programs, we're pretty intentional. And actually, a couple of your head coaches at St. Francis do this because we developed it together. We meet with the athletes preseason. We meet with them like kind of in the middle of the season during leagues, and then right before playoffs, and then after. So you're kind of getting that gauge. One of the problems with surveys sometimes is when you give them, right? If you give it at the end of the season and you just won a championship, like you look great. You give it right before like playoffs start and you're coming off a hard league season, those kids are frustrated and burnt. So we try to hit them a couple of times this season individually, or in small groups, and then sometimes with not as formal as SurveyMonkey, but just like a Google form to get a quick hit off of them as well.
Thank you.
One other thought that came to mind was alumni evaluations as well. St. Ignatius was that was a ongoing process, because I think some of the things that we're asking kids to consider, take time to develop, and they realized later through other life experiences that's why I really believe in the language piece. Again, kind of these places where you can anchor the concept of mission. So then like later in life, they're like, yeah, that was zeal, or that was humility. So that's one thought.
Thank you.
Thanks for your question. My boss is huge on evaluation. He wants to give a presentation on it. I said, Michael, you should, because I think it's a question that a lot of people know that is important, but maybe we haven't done, enough around it, and what are effective ways. So
It seems that there's a regular feedback mechanism, that there's a built-in accountability to the coach. It makes them think about it more often than not. And potentially, changes approaches to things, over the course of time. So, because a program could get hurt pretty badly, or the perceptions of a sports program at a school could get hurt based on parent or kid perceptions of a particular coach, right? Or
sure. Oh yeah.
that effect. So
yeah. Yeah. Well, every March Madness, I'm always blown away by culturally our fascination with coaches. I mean, it's just, to me, it's remarkable how many, people kind of weigh in on, it's just a public, what they see allegedly, in that space, but they're leaders. So it's good to evaluate.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I do have to go.
I know. Yeah.
See ya.
Thanks, everybody. So yeah, there's our session host. Thanks for your time today. I'd like to thank you all for attending. And please, feel free to reach out. And Stricherz at sfhs.com. And I'll post this presentation on the website. So
Thank you.
thanks. Hope we can play against you all. That'd be fun. That would be really fun.
I'm thinking,
Yeah, that'd be great.
I'll email you.
Yeah, thank you.